Hello and welcome back to the big Superman tier list video. This may or may not be the last video. Depends on how long all of this goes. But we are now going over the last 5 years of material. That's where we're at this point. So we're going to start with Krypton, which is, as it seems, it's a depiction of Krypton well before Superman and its destruction. It's a number of years before that. It follows his grandfather Seg-El as a young man. So that's the kind of time period we're dealing with here. Seg-El is played by Cameron Cuff. And there are not a lot of other recognizable figures here, so that's why it's such a different sort of thing from everything else. But this is also coming from David S. Goyer, who was involved with Man of Steel, and whom I primarily blame for Man of Steel being as cynical as it is. But I will say that he's better suited for this series. I do like that they're kind of carrying over the Man of Steel Krypton, like the way that they depicted in the first bit of the show. It's a bit drab in that movie, but they were still going into good detail, so I'm glad that they are that they're following along with it. Do I like it? I mean, sure. What I keep asking myself is, what do we have to compare it to? It's really just a bunch of origin stories from Adventures of Superman, animated series, Man of Steel. They do have some flexibility here because no one really, other than Brainiac, who is part of the primary Krypton mythos, is alive yet at this time period. Okay, yeah, we actually have Zod too, but he's from the future, so it cheats. So yeah, basically, yeah, there are all these. There's like this caste system. The House of El becomes a disgraced house because Seg-El's grandfather, so Superman's great grandfather Val-El, has the gall to suggest that someone might be about to attack Krypton, and that's Brainiac, and it turns out he is, of course. And he sort of acts as the Jor-El figure for Seg-El. I'm going to call him Seg. Seg, and so his grandfather gets like, did I say exiled? I meant executed. But he still has his parents who are vaguely, against the general caste system and regime. But they die and Seg gets orphanated pretty early on. There are hints to the Superman future with more time travel happening with an Earthman named Adam Strange, directly from Superman's era. And he is here to protect Superman's past, and therefore him becoming Superman, right? So that's kind of the whole thing, is that he needs to make sure that everything goes the way that it's supposed to. Yeah. So Val-El, the great-grandfather, is also similar to how Jor-El was in Smallville, for example, in that because even though it's Brainiac instead of the planet exploding, he's still killed for trying to warn of a planet-level threat. So apparently it's a grand tradition for Kryptonian wisdom right there. So let's see. Let me go through a couple of... So Brainiac is kind of an infectious parasite sort of thing where he sends sentries to infect hosts. and one of them is this cult leader called the Voice of Rao, who becomes the primary Brainiac actor, as that often happens. Name's Blake Ritson, and he does a good job. He is the best performance of Brainiac, probably. Even though Superman Unbound is the best, as I've always said, the thematic depiction is best in Superman Unbound. But this is really good in terms of performance. Let's see, you have Colin Salmon playing Zod. They call him Drew Zod. And again, he's also from the future, because he's actually Seg-El's son with Lyta Zod, who's kind of the first, the actual love interest of Seg-El. And he's initially aliased as the Commander in Black. No, excuse me, no. He's just the Commander, and it's in the Black Zero, which is a terrorist or rebel group, depending on your perspective. I still like Michael Shannon better from Man of Steel. Colin Salmon is good. Like I said, he was probably the main contender for Zod, but he doesn't have the same burdened by purpose shtick going, really. And people get so weird around him. There's all these shifting loyalties around him with some justification that works, some that doesn't. Seg chooses to trust him over Adam Strange, and Lyta shoots her own mother instead of letting her they go in a duel, and instead of letting her mother win, she shoots her. Great. Lyta is an annoying character. There are 2 seasons, and she's a really annoying character in season 2. She totally cucks herself to Zod, torturing and brutalizing people. But it's okay because we find out she was reconditioned later. So that's something that Zod can do to people. There's also the Vex family, Darren Vex and Nyssa Vex. And Nyssa Vex is kind of the arranged marriage for Seg-El, and they have a son named Corvex, and he turns out to be Jor-El, which is not too hard to see coming. But it does make Jor-El and Drew Zod half brothers, which I don't know if there's precedent for that, but it was kind of a cool feature. Yeah, so back to the shifting loyalties thing. Again, like I said, Seg decides to not trust Adam, and that's kind of fair, though, because Adam didn't tell him about the destruction of Krypton, and everything else that happens, because, again, it kind of has to happen so the good parts of the future happen. Brainiac needs to take Kandor if Superman is to survive. So you've got that ethical dilemma, and Seg and everyone else, all of his contemporaries, they don't care. They're like, hey, this is our world. I don't give a crap about one of my descendants who wears a silly cape and is able to fly around. I don't give a crap, right? So that's kind of interesting. A couple of characters that turn up. Doomsday turns up. He's in an underground vault, and he's presented as a sort of Hail Mary against Brainiac. Later, in season 2, they do a flashback to the tortures they put the original guy who becomes Doomsday through to create that monster who's Doomsday, which is really cool. We've never seen anything like that before. It's like, let's try and kill him this way, okay, and bring him back to life. Now he can't be killed by that. And that happens over and over and over again. It's really brutal, honestly. And then in second season, they also have Lobo. He is such a joy. He's played by, Emmett J. Scanlon. What a great actor. What a perfect portrayal. No, seriously. He was even going to have his own series. Sadness. So much sadness. So that's unfortunate. Yeah, I could go into how it ends towards season 2, but I've already kind of danced around the edges. The main takeaway here is that it's honestly it's kind of mid in quality, but it's pretty creative. So I think that B is a fair place for it, but it would be it's like lowest B. It's a B minus, I would say. But yeah, might still be worth checking out for you. Death of Superman. Y'all. What? Like, what? Holy. Yes, this is the same story of Superman Doomsday. But holy mother. Like, okay, so this is the same animation style, and so ostensibly the same creative team and series as Justice League War and Justice League Throne of Atlantis earlier in the decade. And the reason that I started off this movie and saw him in that animation style, and I'm like, nah. Because my impression, especially from Justice League War, was him as brash and immature. And he also was, sidelined because it was Justice League, not a Superman movie. But not anymore. Right? So this is, they just do Death of Superman. They do not do any follow-up to it, so they're able to focus the entire everything on it. Okay? Though they do a little, difference to the story. So one of the main plot points is, again, the process of Lois learning Superman's identity. And you're probably starting to see a pattern with all these animated movies with either her learning it or, making the relationship public. All the stuff surrounding their relationship. But this time, it works because it's the primary focus at the beginning of the story, and the tension actually comes from Lois feeling she doesn't really know Clark well, and then pretty quickly, so we don't spend a lingering amount of time on this. This is right after Doomsday first appears to other Leaguers elsewhere. Clark lets it out in the open. He confesses that he's Superman, confesses that he loves her. So that way, we have the rest of the movie to potentially deal with the fallout. And now, the stakes of Doomsday are so high because everything might just work out unless something goes wrong, right? The fight is awesome this time because we don't have to rush the movie towards Superman immediate cloning and resurrection, or the other guys popping up. They're able to just focus that story around what leads up to the death of Superman. It's brutal. It's operatic. Oh my lord. And then once he dies, we have a funeral for a friend, which is it's his funeral. That's the kind of connective tissue between the death and what comes afterwards. I honestly like having some established League members in that sequence and through some of the rest of the movie too. It kind of breaks up the movie a bit in a nice way. Then Lois goes to the Kents, which is, she had gone to Martha because Jonathan was, no, it was the Kents. I'm misremembering, but anyway, that happens at the end of the movie, and it's a nice bookend because she had begun the movie going over to the house before with Clark to get introduced and to try to know him better, right? And they have they have Bibbo Bibowski in this one. He's just a regular working class dude who is the biggest Superman fan. And he had always played a role as the manifestation of the world's grief because he wears his heart on his sleeve, and he just can't take the idea that Superman is gone. And that is crucial to get that representation of how the world is less without Superman. And then, we have the sign of the Supermen that are to come, including in the credits. But that's great in and of itself because they shifted to the credits. They're like, yeah, we're not going to distract in the movie, but if you want to watch the credits, this is what's coming up. The one thing is that, like, in the middle of the movie, or maybe a third of the way through, Hank Henshaw is broadsided in space, which sets up Cyborg Superman for the next movie. So yeah, that's the size of it. There's not a lot in this movie, and that is okay. It actually works in its favor. What they do is pretty near perfect. I might say that this is my favorite of everything. When you take, obviously there are things about other properties that I like better, but when you take everything as a whole, this is just, nothing gets me excited like this movie to think about it, to talk about it. It's just so well done. So well done, man. And then you have Reign of the Supermen. Okay, now Reign, no, not that one. What works so well about Death of Superman, its simplicity, right? Reign of the Supermen, probably by necessity, has to do the exact opposite. And it suffers for it. So what is supposed to happen? Like, let me give this for context. So you have all these these figures that are looking to rush in to fill the void that is Superman. You have the Eradicator, who's like he's a pretender. He's got like a helmet. He's got some additional abilities, but he's totally saying, "Yeah, I'm Superman." Cyborg Superman. He's Superman with like half a metal face. He's saying, "I'm Superman." Those are the two guys that are actually saying they're Superman. Superboy is Superman's clone, and he is he'd been helped to be created by Lex. So Lex is a bit of a father figure in a very strict sense, but he makes no secret of the fact that he is a clone. He is a clone, and he's just kind of the new the super guy on the block. And then you have John Henry Irons, who is the best guy of the bunch. He's just the guy who made a metal suit, who wants to make a difference and try and honor the emblem instead of like trying to replace him, right? And these guys are all introduced in this movie. We even have a fight scene between them early on, which is, it's an expeditious way to get both introductions and, an action sequence out of the way, I guess. But the thing is, we also get because of the way that they're trying to streamline it, we also get confirmation that the actual Superman is alive, really alive early on. Which means we already know that the two Supermen that are trying to convince us that they're Superman, we know that they're not legitimate. The Eradicator isn't him. Cyborg Superman isn't him. And also in the movie, the Eradicator never even vaguely claims to be the original. And he is a much less complex character. He's supposed to be a Kryptonian like computer program, and he still is, but he's literally just a hologram that was supposed to convince the world that Superman is that he's still around, and just to kind of divert attention away from the fact that the fortress is trying to repair the actual Superman. Not the Eradicator has his own idea of like how he should be protecting the world. He's just a more complex character in the comic. It's unfortunate. So, yeah, I am bringing comic knowledge into this, which doesn't really seem fair. But no, I should just power on, right? Here's the thing. Even aside from like the Supermen not being quite what they are in the comic, let's put that aside, right? You wouldn't expect it necessarily, but Darkseid is the eventual villain, and he controls Hank Henshaw, which completely removes his agency as a villain. And Darkseid created Doomsday. These guys already had so much to do. Why would you shove Darkseid in there? Hank Henshaw is perfectly able to be a villain on his own. If you don't like the whole idea of like, oh, Superman wasn't there for me, just give him something else. It wouldn't take much if you don't like what he already has. Just kind of spruce him up as a villain. Darkseid does not need to come in and to swoop in and anti-save the day, in terms of being a villain or having a quality villain in there, right? Yeah. But, okay, I mean, the final fight is decent. Again, the Justice League is kind of a part of this movie, and Henshaw arranges for the League to be transported away in order to establish his police state, basically, which that's not part of the original story, but I kind of like that solution to the problem. It's like, let's just instead of trying to actually beat them, let's just teleport them away. Not such a bad idea, right? And then but after the final fight, it ends a similar way where Superman's back. They make a show of Superman going to save Clark Kent in order to, they try to take the opportunity to show, oh, they're not actually the same person, where what really happens in the comic, no, I should say the movie first, the Martian Manhunter is used to impersonate Clark Kent and therefore put them next to each other. Whereas in the comic, it was Supergirl, but that change makes sense because Supergirl does not have shape-shifting powers these days, whereas that iteration of her when Death of Superman was a thing, she did have shape-shifting powers. So maybe the worst part is that what I really lauded Death of Superman for, which is their integration of the Clark and Lois romance and the stakes therein, there is not much of an emotional through line with them as I would have wanted. Like, there's something there, but it's nowhere near a payoff, feels like, to what they presented in the first movie. I don't know. Am I being unfair to this one? It's competent enough. It has a hard job. It really does to kind of make this story work. My inclination is C. That's probably right. I want to. Yeah, it does okay. It's a bit on a level with Apocalypse. Probably a bit lower. Maybe more around Superman Doomsday. That seems fair. Yeah, I'll go with that. Superman Red Son. Okay, I was so excited when I saw this movie get announced because I'm a massive fan of the comic. I'm not. I'm okay. What the good thing is that I'm not going to be able to tell all the differences between the two, between comic and movie, because it's been a while. With one very notable exception, right? But yeah, maybe that's for the best because I felt like I tried my best to judge this depiction on its own merits, but maybe I'll be able to more purely do so, given that some of the details of the comic escape me in this case. So, the premise is that Kal-El lands in the Ukraine instead of Kansas. That's really all you need in terms of like how much stuff can be different. So Jason Isaacs, who many of you may know as Lucius Malfoy, plays Superman. And Tara Strong plays Kal-El as a kid. And you can now tell people, yeah, Tara Strong played Superman. It's pretty great. Amy Acker as Lois Lane, and Diedrich Bader as Lex Luthor. And then Phil LaMarr reprising his role as John Stewart, because John Stewart has a bit of a different role in this, but there is still a Green Lantern. Okay, so yeah, he grows up kind of in a similar rural setting as Smallville. He literally has a best friend named Svetlana. Nice job there. Yeah, that's pretty great. And then so they have a short period there, right? Once that's done, the rest of the first part of the movie is Superman, and there really is no Clark or even an analog of him in this movie. So say Superman, he goes through a process of getting out from under Joseph Stalin's thumb. So obviously a guy like this, Stalin's going to try to deputize him, obviously, and try and condition him in the Soviet way. But so Superman has to discover where his differences with Stalin lie. Because there's really no, in terms of trying to, as far as like a forceful personality, there's no analog in the initial, in the normal timeline. So there's, unlike in the normal timeline, he has to find a way to stop himself from becoming an extension of Stalin. And turns out that difference, that little personality difference, is in sending people to a gulag because of him. Like Stalin makes sure that people like Svetlana, for example, who know his identity, are put in a gulag so that he's not compromised. And it turns out that Lois, who in this timeline is still, American, she's married to Lex, she leads him to discover this gulag, and then he goes back, confronts Stalin, and decides that the only recourse is to kill him. And what I do kind of like is that after he kills Stalin, he doesn't suddenly have some American awakening or epiphany. He just supports the Soviet Union in his own way. So he continues fighting the Cold War. It's a very successful engagement. So really just doing what the U.S. did, but in the USSR's favor and more decisively because they have a literal Superman on their side. So once he is in power, they're able to go on to like other elements of the story. Kind of similar to the comic, Lex creates Superior Man to fight Superman. He's, he's a creation that really looks like Superman, but he's unstable and stuff. This really just kills time and lets them have a superhero fight. It's I don't recall if it had greater depth in the comic, but it's really not that great here. There is a Batman in this, and I like how he's only the same person as normal insofar as he lost his parents and he's consumed by vengeance. Otherwise, he has nothing to do with Bruce Wayne. He's not American, and his vendetta is with Superman, because his parents were in that gulag that I mentioned. So, Stalin, if you want to get technical, is to blame for that, but it was to protect Superman, so it was because of him. So, Batman wages this campaign against Superman, which is ultimately not successful, but it does cost Superman an allegiance with Wonder Woman. So that is, so it does have consequences. In this timeline, Abin Sur, to kind of go into some other DC mythoses, the original, the progenitor Green Lantern, he's still crash landed, but the ring, for whatever reason, hasn't gone straight to Hal Jordan, even though Hal Jordan is still there. Like, that wasn't quite clear to me. He might have had something go slightly different in his life because of the difference with going into the Ukraine. I don't know. But for whatever reason, Lex, or President Lex by this point, finds Abin Sur's body and gives the ring to Hal. I don't know why I went that way. But anyway, they basically reimagine the Green Lantern Corps as an earthbound American loyal company of soldiers. And so they attempt to put up a defense against Superman when he eventually invades, but it does not really go that well. So they have the main thrust of the plot after, the post-Stalin is in regards to Brainiac. So Brainiac attacks Earth and Superman defeats him and apparently brings him to heel, but it's revealed years later that this was not ever the case. And here's where I compare a little bit, because the transition of Superman as like the de facto antagonist of the story, because he is being like the conqueror, the Soviet conqueror, transferring that status and role to Brainiac as a sort of more explicit antagonist is, they're a little too eager to do it in the movie. In the comic, not to go into too much detail, there's a moment of reckoning that makes Superman deal with the choices he's made. The way that they do it here, it loses a little weight and color because of that. So, I would recommend seeing the movie. I would also recommend reading the comic, because if nothing else, I mentioned that there was one thing that I absolutely knew was a difference, and that is a plot twist at the very, very end of the comic. And that plot twist is, if you guys have seen Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, what happens to Black Bolt? It's like that. But I don't think, even being aware of that absence, I don't think that I can deny that as a movie, this is on par with probably Elite, Superman versus the Elite, in terms of like exploring how different Superman could be, I guess. Yeah, and it's still such a quality story, such a quality idea, and they keep a lot of the stuff from the comic. So yeah, this feels like the right place for it. Okay, almost through here, guys. We've been in the 2020s since with Red Sun, which was also 2020. Which was the first 2020 movie, and this is the second. So this is Superman: Man of Tomorrow, which is the start of like the current DC universe. I say animated universe, but that's so specific to me. But anyway, they're starting something new here, and it's pretty clear that they are. This looks like this movie seems like it's meant to be a revamp, going back to the origin story, which, to be fair, hadn't happened in a main canon animated movie ever, actually. So that is important context, but for me, that's automatically going to be boring. Kind of in a similar way to Superman the movie, but to a greater fashion, because it's not as hasn't earned its iconic status like Superman the movie did. And so unless they present it from a new angle, it's going to be boring. And you know, they do foreground him feeling othered as an alien a little bit. Like there's this cool scene as a kid where he kind of recognizes anti-alien prejudice, just like from a kid's the way that his friend does it, and that's interesting. But it's really nothing we haven't seen before, and I do get the feeling that there this does land with some people, but it just didn't with me. You know, um, there is a lot of. I guess the problem is one of the major problems is there's um, a lot of just fighting and science in this movie. The thematic stuff is really few and far between. Um, you have Parasite here, and he and Lobo are the primary villains, which is a bit different, at least. But you still do have Lex, and he's still there causing trouble. They try to make a point with Parasite and Lobo and Jean, who turns up, how they are not they're not like human passing, so they're trying to make a really like under the radar privilege argument there, which I can understand, and that's something, but um, I don't like how Jean is the one to tell Clark about his Kryptonian heritage, because that makes very little intuitive sense. Like, okay, because he is an alien who's actually really, really close, like next door, he's from Mars, he knows everything about Kryptonians. It's kind of presumptuous, don't you think? um, and then they do a dumb red herring with his death. Yeah, I think this is meant to be a baseline, like giving you the Superman fundamentals. But there's very little here. Again, there's just like action, action, action. Throw in a something in regards to um, you know not acting with fear, yada yada yada. I'm just not a fan of this one. I am gonna put it at D. It would not be right to put it on the bottom tier, because they just don't really do that anymore. They don't make movies like that anymore. Hopefully they won't again. But it's pretty underwhelming. And finally, my friends, we have Superman and Lois, the current iteration, the current CW TV show, ongoing. Season 3 will be here in just a couple of weeks. Before watching this, I kept hearing a lot of hype around it, about it like being the best Superman in ages, Tyler Hoechlin being the best Superman in ages. Do I agree? Let's find out. I should first say, like I mentioned, Supergirl was the only CW show that was involved with the larger canon of the Arrowverse. Even though these actors, Superman and Lois, are the same actors from there, they just kind of grandfathered them into this series. They are in their own world. And this is clear from the beginning, even though it's kind of presented as a big reveal at the end of season 2, which I never really understood. I'm like, yeah, I know. They had the crisis, and now it's one Earth, and you've made it abundantly clear that there's nothing, there's no Supergirl, there's no Flash, there's nothing else going on here. So, whatever. Premise. We are focusing on Superman's chosen family, rather than the one he was born into, or the one he was adopted to. Or, since I keep talking about the Daily Planet family, I guess you could also include the non-literal one. But this is his wife and his sons. This is a great idea. And I think that at least his sons, specifically their relationship with one another, makes one of the strongest parts of the show. Okay. So, Tyler Hoechlin. For whatever reason, I am finding... I find the current Superman one of the hardest to judge. It feels like I don't have the benefit of hindsight or seeing like his full journey. Maybe that's kind of why. And then I guess it's also because even though he's in a decent story and does a decent job playing the character, I don't consider it to be even a very Superman heavy show in terms of his character. It's much more equalized. Again, particularly with the sons. There's a lot more focus on the sons and the family. Now, that is to the benefit of the family, but he kind of suffers for it in terms of like having a sort of presence. Not entirely, but a little bit. Because he is a good Clark Kent. He is like easily in the top half of, not the best, but like the top half of Clark Kent's. He's not a bad Superman. He's not bad. It's not Dean Cain, dear God. And I'm harsh on Dean Cain, but like, you know, when you have all these to compare to, it's hard not to shit on him a little bit. But with Hoechlin, there is still a little too much Clark in there. You particularly see it when he's like talking to like an army dude or something, and he's trying to like be Superman. He speaks too quickly and kind of slurs his sentences instead of speaking with any kind of like moral authority. It's just like, I'm gonna do this thing, and this is how it's gonna be done. It's too fast. It's too fast. So very average marks with Hoechlin, I would say. And he is really earnest, and I don't want to. You know, people tend to hear average as like, oh, you think he sucks? No, that's literally very not what I'm saying. I like him, but he just has a few issues. Right. Now, Elizabeth Tulloch as Lois Lane. Best Lois? Here's the thing. Even with Dana Delaney in Superman the Animated Series, which was the baseline, the one to beat, I don't think I ever so strongly felt the sense that she is someone to be feared and respected in her own right as one of the best damn reporters in the world. It should be, it's kind of the way, especially at the beginning of this, when she's dealing with some, rich dudes who are trying to be exploitative, right? It should be the same level of awe. It's like, oh, this Superman's coming. Like, oh, Lois Lane is coming. It really sells the idea that they're going to be true partners in this series, which is really what they're going for. And then plus there's a lot more into her family. So you can kind of see you really do see how her childhood, especially in the second season, impacts her parenting and her other behavior. And it's honestly really fascinating to see that play out. The sons, Jonathan and Jordan. And Jonathan is played by Jordan Elsass, and Jordan is played by Alex Garfin. And like I said, they have great chemistry. Honestly, for actors playing characters this age on a CW show, they are pretty darn solid. And the characters themselves complement each other really beautifully, honestly, because they're so different, but they're also always in each other's corner. Now, I did just learn during reviewing for this that Jordan Elsass is leaving the show and Michael Bishop is going to be taking his place. Which, as we have certainly seen by this point, that is continuing a grand tradition decades long. All the way back to Adventures of Superman. So, Lana is in this show. That is Emmanuelle Triqui. It's an odd name to me. She is her own Lana. She's not especially comparable to any of the others. She's fine enough for the character's purposes. Though this is a weird thing to point out, but she looks like comfortably older than the other parents, like than Clark and Lois, or than her own husband. And maybe the actress is, I don't know. And that feels like a really shallow thing to point out, but that's a feature of like this person playing Lana. I don't know what you want. But so I mentioned that Lois's family gets a whole thing that particularly includes Sam Lane. Now, we've seen Sam Lane in a lot of properties, but this iteration, played by Dylan Walsh, he's just more present than the other ones, which makes sense since other shows were more Superman centered, right? So he really just acted as a father-in-law. But here we have just as much him as a grandfather to the sons, and him as a father to Lois and to her sister when she comes into the show. So that's good in his favor. And then I mentioned Lana's husband. His name is Kyle Cushing, played by Eric Valdez. And I want to bring him up just because I've always been of the opinion that it's a lot harder than it looks to play a normal dude. And he just nails it. He nails it. He's really good at it. So there's a brief origin story at the beginning, in which we see Superman in the Max Fleischer suit. I had seen this promo image and it got me so excited. It's really brief. It's just him, the kid saying nice costume, and him saying thanks, my mom made it for me, and it's just really wholesome. I really like that. I had mentioned that there were a couple of red herrings kind of the way that Hank Henshaw was really Jean Jones in Supergirl. In this case, there are a couple of them. The first is that you get a guy in a suit, and he's called Captain Luthor. But he is eventually revealed to be John Henry Irons. And that's pretty clever, because the reason it's called Captain Luthor is because, like, he stole the suit from Luthor, but he's not Luthor. He's coming from one of the universes that was destroyed in Crisis. So let me be clear. It is effectively not tied into the Arrowverse, though there are some ramifications. So there's a kind of a fine distinction there, but it is there, I guess. And he pulls off the helmet, see the back of his head at the beginning of the first episode, and he's black. He's very clearly black. So you figure something's up, even though, it's possible they make Luthor black in this, but, it's grounds for suspicion. So, something about Jonathan and Jordan. John is the athletic one. So in a very necessary, in my mind, piece of subversion, Jordan is the one who gets the powers. And because he does and John doesn't, that complicates their dynamic from nearly the beginning, because it's like in episode 2 that it's confirmed that Jordan has the powers. Not to mention, it's basically a dead repeat of the Smallville storyline when Jordan wants to play football, even though there's danger, and Clark has to be like, no, you shouldn't do that. And it's really funny to think that he went through the exact same thing, at least in Smallville. I bet if you dug into this one's past, it's the same sort of thing. So other plot points of season 1. Sam Lane is adjusting to Clark's new priorities, which leads him to work with Captain Luthor, who has an antagonistic relationship towards Superman. And they both develop contingency plans for emergencies, which is not really underhanded. It's just saying, we need a Superman, and you're clearly not being Superman as much, so we're going to have some kids do it sometimes. Morgan Edge is that kind of exploitative rich guy I talked about. He is not played the same guy who I didn't mention him in Supergirl, is played by Adrian Pasdar from Heroes. But this is a different guy. He might have been a character in that one cult leader in Supergirl, but I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, he's exploiting Smallville and taking advantage of worker good faith and using Kyle as a kind of a spokesperson for him. But in the end, it turns out he's Kal-El's half-brother, Tal-Rho. And by the end of season 1, he becomes the Eradicator. Which you can think of, at least in this case, he's basically a Kryptonian body snatcher. I mean, it's a better portrayal than Reign of the Supermen in a lot of ways, so there's that. And I should mention that the reason that John Henry Irons is antagonistic is because he was married to Lois in that other world, and she got super duper lasered by that Superman who wore a black suit and was total evil Superman. So that'll tend to do it. That'll tend to color your judgment. So yeah, let me get to season 2 before I do a whole thing as season 1. So season 2, there's something buried underground, and they don't call it Doomsday, but they say Doomsday as their other red herring. But psych, it's Bizarro. And they even do a thing of, this is bizarre. And someone else says, oh, come on, guys. You're doing this on purpose, obviously. But this is the most interesting Bizarro. It is on a level way above Superboy in a way, because he's basically the reverse. It's not an alternate universe in the same way that John Henry Irons is from one, but he's from like the mirror or the Bizarro world essentially, and he in that world he is just a Superman variant who let fame go to his head, which is it's really honestly refreshing to get a sort of a disturbing alternate version of Superman who's not really evil. And they do that very well in this. He's just kind of spiraling into selfishness and, yeah, and vainglory. So the main conflict of this season is it's a merger between they call it the inverse world and the main world is threatened, which will destroy both. This is being orchestrated by Ali Alston, who is a cult leader who preaches all about becoming whole. So kind of finding that other backwards half of yourself and joining together with them. Lucy Lane comes in as a result of this because she is a part of that cult. She's basically been brainwashed. And in doing so, she achieves the dubious honor of being the actual worst. She is hard to watch. She is hard to come around on. I will just say that. Other plot points, there's the mayoral campaign, because they're trying to oust this slime bucket dude who kind of screwed them over in the last season. There's originally a completely different challenger, but he drops out, and Lana takes his place, and she wins. And that's kind of reminiscent of the Smallville senatorial race, but with a happier ending because she doesn't immediately die after winning. That's a win in my book. But at the same time, her and Kyle's marriage is falling apart after she learns he cheated. So there's that storyline. The contingency plans that I mentioned before have, as of the beginning, have come into fruition but even though he's left and it's Sam Lane is left and it's under different leadership, it's a trio of younger super people, two of which do not last very long. I won't get into details about that. John Henry Irons' daughter has been trapped in space for a long time, trying to escape from their world. And a lot of this season is about their relationship and her coming to terms with having Lois there, who was her mom, but it's not the same mom. So there's all that. There is a drug storyline with a kind of a yellowish ex-kryptonite, and John uses it to keep up in football and basically compensate for being unpowered versus Jordan. And it gets to his head, and that's kind of a good storyline. Interestingly enough, Lana had not known in childhood that Clark has powers, which I don't think I've ever seen before. Well, like once Lana gets to adulthood, she still doesn't know. But he tells her in this season because she's getting more and more involved in everything that's going on, and the whole family basically agrees as a unit that like this is what needs to happen. So yeah, I thought that the season 2 plot was better than the first, which was honestly kind of blasé. I wanted to go through season 2 before putting judgment on season 1 so that you know how much, kind of more varied and interesting it can get. Like I said, this is where kind of around here is where people are putting it. I don't see it that way. I At least as of right now, it's still ongoing, could still change. Um, but it is an extremely solid B for me. This might be my least popular opinion, given its recency and the way that people feel about it. So, and there you have it, folks. That is my tier list. I hope you liked these videos. I hope you found them educating, entertaining, all that jazz. Superman, even after this long, I think that he needs all the attention that he can get. I think that he is relentlessly relevant, and can always tell inspiring stories and help us to be better, change with the times, always be there for us. I am probably going to be keeping up with Superman from this point forward. We've got some exciting things on the horizon. The biggest of which is obviously James Gunn's new Superman for, big DC. There's also this, like, what seems to be like a kid's cartoon called My Adventures with Superman. And then there's the J.J. Abrams, Ta-Nehisi Coates, Black Superman's storyline, which I think that's supposed to be Val Zod. And yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Hope you enjoyed again, and peace to y'all. Thanks for watching.